I have always wanted to be a teacher. Since third grade, it was all that I could envision myself doing. I grew up living downtown, and after I moved to the suburbs, I knew that I could never work there. I had to move back to the city. There seemed to be an unspoken agreement among everyone I met in the suburbs that they were superior to everyone else who did not live in or grow up in the suburbs. I also noticed that the people there lacked the desire to spend time in places other than where they lived. I went to high school with people who had never been to Denver, which was only 20 minutes away. They said it was too scary or unsavory for them to spend time there. The beliefs, values, and ideologies of the people I met in the suburbs greatly contradicted my own. But I was used to fighting this disconnect and difference of ideas. All of my extended family lives in a small town in Ohio. Their small-minded, set-in-their-ways thinking and behaviors is what drove my parents to find a more open and accepting place to live. By moving, they saved my sister and I from the everyday bombardment of openly displayed white privilege and racism. But they could not prevent their family's beliefs from being expressed to us every time we visited or when they posted things on Facebook. I love my family, but I often found myself uncomfortable with them. I was stuck wanting to speak up and question what they were saying, but not knowing if what I believed to be true had any real weight to it. Even though I did not agree with my extended family, or with the people I encountered in the suburbs, I still subconsciously let them shape what I thought about teaching as a career and privilege in our society. I walked into class that first day, and I was in a state of cognitive dissonance. I was a bit put off by the accusations made in the readings we had completed before class started. Is this true? I thought. How could I have so much privilege that I didn't even know I had? Looking back, I now realize that they weren't really accusations, but the opportunity that I needed to examine my life in a new way. I thought that I knew what racism was. I thought I was taking an active stand against it by trying not to say racist things. I thought that I knew what being an urban teacher was going to be like. I thought I knew a lot, but it turns out that almost all of my assumptions were wrong. And then we listened to music. I have never connected to anything like I connected with the thoughts and opinions expressed by the songs that I was exposed to in this class. Brother Ali changed the way that I viewed myself, the people around me, every experience I have had and will have. His music showed me exactly the frustration that I was feeling towards a lot of things in our world today. My extended family members, the state of the nation, the debate over refugees, presidential elections, and so much more. He talked about how white privilege is systematic and built into the roots of our deepest institutions. He calls people into action by calling them out for being hyper-patriotic or for turning a colorblind eye to the racism that is still quite prevalent in our country today. Brother Ali did not let anyone punk him out of saying how he views the United States, and when I heard his music, I started seeing the world a little differently too. After listening to his music, I opened up my mind, pushed aside my resistance to look at my own privilege and power from a critical lens, and tried to let the information I was reading really take effect. What I found was relief. Having been at intellectual odds with my family, friends, neighbors, classmates, and myself for so long, finally having a way to express my thoughts and understand my beliefs in a context that others could also relate to was freeing. The burden of feeling like the odd one out with no support behind my thinking was lifted, and a new burden was added. Whiteness. A name for the system of white privilege and oppression that I have benefited from. Whiteness has privileged me in innumerable ways. It makes me upset and call into question why I was never exposed to this topic before college. I had been taught that it was okay for me to be and act privileged. It was encouraged, actually, by the structure of my K-8 honors classes, my high school AP classes, and my college, university honors and leadership program as well. But now I choose to say no more. I am done blindly taking privileges that I have done nothing to deserve. I need to take a step back from my privilege and actively work against it. To make this start, I must ask myself, what am I going to do to become actively anti-racist? Knowing that my answers will change and evolve as my learning and experience continues, what steps can I take right now?
We're gonna see if Tony Jerome and the band can maybe work this shit out for me. Straighten me out right quick. Welcome to the United Snakes, land of the thief, home of the slave. Grand Imperial Guard, where the dollar is sacred and proud. Let's do this shit for real, come on now. Smoke and mirrors, stripes and stars, stolen for the cross in the name of God. Bloodshed, genocide, rape and fraud, written to the pages of the law, good law. The cold continent latchkey child ran away one day and started acting foul. King of where the wild things are, daddy's proud, cause the Roman Empire done passed it down. Imported and tortured the workforce and never healed the wounds or shook the curse off. Now the grown-up Goliath nation holding open auditions for the part.
Whiteness is not the only system that I need to be working against as a person or as a teacher, though. I'm a part of the majority of the American population in terms of sexual orientation, but I will have students who fall all along the sliding scales of gender identity and expression, as well as sexual and romantic attraction. As a teacher, it is my job to help interrupt the heteronormativities of my students while aiding them to learn acceptance and understanding of the fact that there are people who are different than they are. I cannot simply tell these students that they must be accepting, though. They must discover this answer and discover what that looks like to them all on their own. I can give my students the best information that I have access to in order to help them learn and explore the concepts of interrupting heteronormativity, as well as whiteness, racism, classism, ageism, and every other oppressive or exclusive group out there. The students that I work with must be the ones to take ownership of their lives and their place within society. I cannot stand for them. I must stand with them. I can give them the tools that they need to think critically and for themselves, but they must be the ones to use their knowledge for change. The oppressed must be the force behind liberation. I can love my students enough to give them the skills that they need to take the lead. Love is holding people accountable, holding them to high standards. Not over the top, crazy love, but honest, caring, giving of yourself and of your identity to accepting and nurturing all parts of their identity. In this way, I must love my future students enough to invest in their lives and well-being beyond just academic achievement. As a teacher, I pledge to love my students enough to help them become well-rounded critical thinkers. I love them enough to affront and confront my own microaggressions as well as the microaggressions of others. I love them enough to show them how to challenge dominant ideologies. I love them enough to think critically about my own race, power, and privilege. I love them enough to take a step back from my privilege and stand with them instead of for them. I love them enough to see them as a whole human being. I love them enough to teach critically so that they can learn to think critically. I love them enough to not be all critique and no solution. Before entering the doors of Social Foundation's Cultural Diversity and Urban Education class, I thought I knew what being an urban education teacher meant, but I was wrong.
I used to think I hated this place. Couldn't wait to tell the president straight to his face. But lately I changed, nowadays I embrace it all. Beautiful ideals and amazing flaws. Gotta care enough to give a testament about the deeply depressing mess we're in. It's home, so we better make the best of it. I wanna make this country what it says it is. Still dreaming the vividest living color. No matter how many times my love been smothered. Who's ever above us won't just let us suffer. All of this struggling gotta amount to something. This is a letter to my countrymen, especially those my age and younger than. We're up against an ugly trend. Everybody hustling, don't nobody touch their friends. No group singing and dancing.
But that was before, and this is now.
Instead, they give you a handheld and make you shoulder life's burden by your damn self. One thing that can't be debated: power never changed on its own, you gotta make it. That's why community is so sacred. That's the symbol that we make when we raise fists. We don't don't really like to talk about the race thing. The whole grandparents used to own slaves thing. Pat ourselves in the back in February, looking at pictures of Abe Lincoln and the great king. But the real picture's much more embarrassing. We're still not even close to really sharing things. The situation of oppressed people shows what we feel it means to be a human being. What does it mean to be American? I think the struggle to be free is our inheritance. And if we say it how it really is, we know our lily skin still give us privilege.